Good evening. Good evening. Welcome. I hope that everyone is having a good Sunday evening. Haha. Um, we are focusing on bridging the home and school partnership. Really, just some things to repair. Just a simple reset, right? Especially as the holidays are on deck. Some people have already started their Thanksgiving break. Others have a couple days to put in this week and then they'll be on break. But the goal this evening is to really have just a grounded conversation with two to three. Just that's it. Because sometimes we're layering too much, we're trying to do too much too soon, all at once, right? All at the same time as we're managing everything else. So, again, a grounded conversation about two to three strategies that you can use between now and then before this semester fully closes out, right? Just some tips, some things to really strengthen the home to school communication, but being clear that we're doing it without stress and making sure that we are not seeking perfection as we're leaning into that. Right? We're not seeking perfection progress, because perfection is not a thing when humans are involved. Good evening, y'all. Thank y'all for joining. So, a couple things. I'm gonna share some communication stories, if you will, right? Y'all let me know in the chat if this has happened to you or oh, I've done this. But I'm gonna share some stories of my own and some borrowed stories. But let me know if this has happened to you. So maybe there was a moment when a quick a quick check-in email turned into something much different than anticipated and planned. It became much bigger, not because of the intention, but because of how the message landed. Okay. So, just in general, every educator kind of has a neutral message, right? That maybe gets interpreted as a crisis at some point in your career. It could go something like, just checking in about the missing work, want to make sure everything is okay. And the parents may have heard something is wrong at home, slash, your child is failing, slash, there's a big problem, y'all are in trouble. Okay, so the talking point there is just making sure that parents hear our messages through the filter of fear, responsibility, and love, not through teacher logic, right? Because teacher logic is for teachers. So, again, when we're thinking about the messages and how much we are including or not including, then those are like the three things parents are going to lock into. Is this something I should be concerned about? Is this something addressing my responsibilities? And then is there any tone of love? Okay, y'all let me know if you've been in one of those situations before, right? Maybe again, some of these situations are mine and some I'm borrowing, right? Maybe it was just a quick, you had a couple moments, sent an email, hey, can we talk later today? I noticed something in class, right? From the teacher perspective, the educator just wants to secure the time to make sure the family connects. But the vagueness caused the problem, the vagueness and the time of day. Although the teacher said, okay, maybe it's lunch break, it might be my conference period, let me send this quick. And it caused an emotional spiral at home, right? The parent might have spent the rest of that afternoon just worrying. You meant something simple. Again, as the educator, you were just trying to lock in a time to make sure you all got to talk. But the vague message really just created a blank space. And blank space is often what we talked about on the last part, right? It's often rewritten with fear, maybe some judgment about the responsibility. And was there any love, any concern expressed? So it just creates a lot of questions because it was vague, right? Someone say, yes, definitely have experienced the check-in mushrooming. Yeah, I'm going to share a number of them. So this one is one of mine, actually. A message that didn't translate well, literally. So we're going to talk about how well messaging lands, right? How well it's received, but it didn't translate well. And this is one of the moments when I found out the hard way that Google Translate was not awesome. It was awesome opposite when it comes to, literally trying to communicate maybe with multilingual families. So sent the message home, right? The intent was just to just to communicate and just to check in, just a basic check in, but the phrasing didn't translate well, and so it came across negative. And so then the student arrived with an attitude and was like, "My mom thinks that you're mad at me." So clarity is not universal. We have to make sure we're being that much more intentional about our word choice, right? Especially if it's going to be something simple, not super layered, and all the context and emotion isn't there, because language itself has an emotional tone. So we have to think, sometimes the less language that's there, it leaves so much room for misinterpretation. So we're just kind of building the context here of some of the things that go wrong often in the big scheme of things, knowing that when we're talking about just emails, right? This, because most of the communication is emails, so people can have documentation, also just for ease, to remember exactly what y'all were talking about for the student, all of these things. So a lot of communication from school to home is via email these days. And that by itself is a whole set of problems we've talked about before, that only leaves about 7% of the communication being nailed, right? There's a whole 93%. You can't hear the tone, you can't hear their inflection, you can't see any gestures, verbal things, like all the benefit that we have here on this live stream. Not, you have 100% benefit here, but imagine when it's just an email, 93% of the communication is gone. 93% is off the table. So that itself is why we do have to curate and design these emails, these communications. Okay, a couple more. Maybe again in a rush kind of situation, right? The email actually sounded cold. So you wrote something just short, maybe trying to do it during the transition period. Okay, we're packing up. I have some seconds to send this email, this communication to a parent. Then I need to go stand at the door to greet the next class, right? You took that quick moment. But that overwhelm actually guided the whole tone of the email, right? That our emotional state can bleed into our writing. Just like when people are maybe having a mood, or depending on their emotional state, they're going to read your email with a certain kind of tone, especially if things are left too wide open, right? So that rush state that came across in the email. So our messages carry our emotional fingerprints even if we don't realize it. Same thing, the way you receive, right, your email, a message, definitely is giving some clues and some hints, I'll say, for what was going on with you that day and in that moment, even if you don't realize it. All right. So any others? Did any of those? I know one of them for sure. Right. Someone said the vagueness definitely resonated, but did anything else resonate? Y'all let me know. But let's talk about kind of how we got here just over the years, right? Because the school and the way the school system, the way those are viewed today is not how it was viewed previously. And there's lots and lots of reasons for that. But we just want to make sure that we talk about it, we acknowledge it, because then we're working to, again, repair the partnership, put some things back in place as much as possible. So the reality of the pandemic residue, just some things, there were some things that broke trust, that fractured trust along the way. And so some of that really hasn't been tended to again. And when we say fractured trust, it can be anything from having different kind of access, if you will, into people's homes because, the kids were logged in online and you could see and hear more. Just lots of stories there. I don't want to get off track with that, but lots of potential stories. And with that, there's increased pressure on both sides, on the family side and the school side, especially because of this. Oh, we have to catch up. These things did happen during the pandemic. These other things did not happen during the pandemic. So now we're trying to play catch up, right? Or we're trying to unlearn some habits. So it's a lot more pressure on both sides of the coin, but different expectations around communication. And with that in mind, my one big example I can think of is If a parent had, even if a parent has 4 kids or however many kids at home, they have that specific number, but you have to think that for an educator, that's easily multiplied by something. So even if you have 9 kids at home, right, an educator may see 150, 175 kids a day. So the expectation of certain details, a certain speed and turnaround, just a certain type of conversation flow, the frequency, all of that, then that is largely kind of undefined. And the expectations tend to be different on the parent side versus the educator side. And to the point of, most educators definitely welcome having conversation and communication with parents, but that is also why sometimes educators will push you to say, okay, y'all, please, let's schedule something so it can be a sit down. I don't want to have to rush, right? I don't want to try to hurry up and respond. I don't want to not say enough. And then it becomes, like someone said earlier, the mushrooming thing is just blossoming and growing into its own thing unnecessarily. So that's a lot of times when, and educators, if you're trying to go back and forth for documentation's sake, at a point, it's like, okay, no, we need to sit down and maybe we just need to just have one good conversation, because then again, they can benefit, both parties can benefit from 100% of the communication, not just 7%. And you really don't know this person like that, right? Your child knows them much better than you do. And it's still their teacher representative, right? Their educator representative. So someone said, wow, that's huge and impactful. 93% of the call, 93% of the overall impact that communication has is off the table. Yeah. Yes. 93%, because emails are only locking in 7%. It's the words only. It's the words only. I already told you my personal story about the cultural or linguistic differences, right? So I'm just glad that I did learn, though, some things to do better. We're going to talk about some specific things. Then, honestly, we talk about this a lot for the young people, but adults are very much so locked into social media as well. But the reality of social media giving a snapshot, right? That, okay, this is a day in the life of a virtual student. This is a day in the life of a teacher. This is, so just all these things that continues to feed and add to the unrealistic expectations, right? Maybe what people think is happening in the classroom, maybe what people assume is happening at home, but it's not authentic. We know social media is curated and it can set a tone for unrealistic expectations. So with all of that, right? Because there's still some things. It's like I told you, it's a number of things and a number of reasons why the partnership is broken and how we got here. But we're talking about the biggest ones, the biggest, most recently impactful ones. So both sides of the coin again. Teachers are burnt out. Just, we're going to say that flat out, straight up. Teachers are burnt out, and that is limiting emotional bandwidth. So some of the expectations for how deeply teachers may engage, right, in their conversation, but really conversation normally via email. And we talked about why again, because documentation slash just, if I'm managing 175 kids, at least I know I can go back and read exactly what we were talking about, and I can continue that conversation there, right? Then on the parent side, life is life. So parents may be overwhelmed with work, with life, with just the invisible labor as well. So all of that being emotions. So everyone is presenting and receiving messages based on their emotions, whether or not they realize it. And that's causing some big time issues. The gap is just wider because both sides are exhausted and no one seems to have time to repair, slash, we're not prioritizing the repair, right? Everyone's just kind of moving forward. So we're going to talk about some specific things and specific ways to really repair. So a few reframes, I'll say, right, that we're going to share, we're going to talk about. But one, again, being clear that the repair is better than perfect. We're not striving for perfect, because that's not a thing. That's not attainable. That's not the goal. We're going for consistency in the repair. Consistency is key. So if the message is human, that's already enough, right? Educators don't need to have to run emails past the communications department at central office. You don't need to lock into a PR firm like McKinsey and Co., right? All you need to do is make sure that your emails, and I keep saying emails because that is the vast majority of communication between school to home at this point, they need to be clear and have compassion. Step one, that's human, clarity and compassion. Part two, you all, if we're repairing, we're going to understand that it's building more trust than perfection ever could, right? If someone presented to be perfect, how much would you trust them? If they always have it together, they never make a mistake. They No, we don't have time for that. You be giving a lot of side eye, like, no, they don't understand. I don't want to interact with this person, right? But when we are real about the humanity, right? But we're clear with compassion. And if we need to say something because there was an error, if we need to clarify something, then that's what we do. And that is respected much more. And that's how trust is built. If the email didn't land, it didn't go well, like I told you, a multilingual family, and the little girl said, listen, my mom thinks you're mad at me. What did your email say? And I was trying to figure out what my email said too. But I told you Google Translate, right, was not was not the best helper at that time. But a follow-up email or a phone call that could restore the trust. Okay, so when we mess up, something didn't go well in the communication, then what? Do we just leave it there? Do we just throw our hands up? Or do we work past that? If we're talking about truly repairing the partnership, rebuilding the trust, it's going to take some work, some, but not stressful. That's why we say we're locking in on 2 to 3 things tonight. That's it, because we're going to make sure we smoothly entering and with ease closing out this semester. The third thing I want you all to think about is that communication is less, again, about what you say and more about what families interpret. It's less about what you say. I told you that's 7%, but it's how the families interpret what you say. So usually, right, when we communicate, you might be able to see, you might be able to lock in on the idea of pacing and tone, volume, emotional state, the timing. But for an email, you have 7% to make it happen. 7%. The other 93, we have to try to kind of weave in to the wording. Don't worry though, I have something to help you. Because you're like, this is the whole thing. It is. It is. So, is there a message? I want y'all to think for a moment. Is there a message that you wish families knew you meant, even when your words didn't come out perfectly? Like, you know that you were communicating something and it didn't land well. Tell me about that time. Tell me about that time. I shared mine, y'all share y'all's, right? While y'all are thinking and typing, we're going to talk about a few resets. So we're going to really lean into and kind of walk through probably the 4 most common communication misfires, the moments when the message, we sent it, but that's not the message that was received, right? So just some quick, again, we have to repair the attempts, some scripting, some thoughts around repairing the situation. That's what we're focused on. So the first thing we talked about, the email that maybe because we didn't say enough, the parent, the family member interpreted it as an emergency, right? Because all you said was, "Hey, can we talk?" And all the rest of that afternoon, they were like, "Oh my gosh, talk about what? What is there something wrong? Let me check the grade book." What is this? So all the things, it's a spiral or a mushroom, someone said, right? The phrasing earlier. So y'all, fix that, resolve that. We can say, "I realize my earlier message may have sounded a bit more serious than I intended. I'm so sorry for any worry it caused. Everything is okay. I just wanted to keep you updated on how Anika is doing with the new content, the new curriculum, and stay aligned as we finish the semester. What? You took worry off the table. They're not panicking. It recenters the intention because maybe we fumbled the intention the first time, but we just reestablished trust and it had a humanized tone. Super simple, right? And y'all are like, okay, these sound good. These sound good. Okay, just wait, just wait. Maybe that midday, again, that quick, can we talk with no context? So, resolution, say that. Okay, you know what? I wanted to give you a little more context so you don't spend the afternoon wondering. This is not urgent, nor is it negative. I actually wanted to share something positive that I noticed today, and we can talk whenever it's easiest for you. One, it took the rush and panic and urgency off. It gave emotional relief. Y'all, it really corrects the narrative because you know they were writing something. We said when it's vague and people have space, it's blank, people are going to write things and it's not necessarily correct, right? It softens the communication climate because we say, you know what, it's positive, it's not even urgent. You let me know a good time for you so you don't even feel the same rush. It definitely outlines clarity. Definitely. A third error we're going to talk about four. The third error, again, was the language misfire, right? With the multilingual family. So the message landed as negative. The young lady said, my mom thinks you're mad at me. I haven't been doing well in class. So fixing it up, right? Going back to repair, to reestablish versus just like, well, I don't know. Because this is how some of the partnership has gone wrong between school and home over the years and decades. Y'all fix it. So thank you for your reply. Thank you for the message. I wanted to restate what I meant in clearer language. What I wanted to say, what I intended to say was in a very simple restatement, right? This is not the time to use all the best synonyms you know. It's the most simple, plain language way to explain it, right? Especially when there is the variable of translating. Everything is okay. This was just a small check in to support Anika. Thank you for your partnership. What? Now, the mom definitely knows I'm not mad at the child. I don't have any questions, just a basic communication, right? Someone in the chat said a time of miscommunication when a student accrued multiple absences. An email of concern sent but was received by the parent as a threatening communication. That happens too. That is the other part. That is the other part. That it also can be viewed as challenging, right? Their responsibility when the communication sometimes doesn't say enough or what the goal was for why we're talking about the absences. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That's an excellent point. Excellent point. So, the last error we'll look at and talk about correcting, making sure we have a resolution. So, kind of similar, I guess, to what was just said in the chat. Maybe the tone was a little rushed or sounded cold, short, or critical. So, it was perceived as a threat. So, I reread my message and I realized it may have sounded shorter than what I meant. It was a full moment between classes, and I appreciate your patience. But I wanted to communicate what I wanted to communicate was simply blank. And you state your intention clearly. I value our partnership. So it acknowledges the tone, it frames the context easily. Like, yeah, I was between classes. Sorry, right? Helps everybody keep their dignity and works on restoring the relationship, y'all. That's the goal. Like, these are meant to be light, realistic, and immediately usable, not heavy strategies. Y'all tell me on a scale of 1 to 5, did any of these sound outrageous? Did it sound like a heavy lift? Like, this is just heavy strategies. One being, nope, not at all. Not heavy. 5 being, yeah, it sounded like a lot. Y'all let me know in the chat. 1 to 5. Did any of these responses, these potential resolutions sound too intense? Like these are unapproachable. I cannot do them. Scale of 1 to 5. Let me know in the chat. 1 being, no, very low lift. seems very reasonable. 5 being no, it's too much. You're asking a lot. Okay. Yeah, we actually have worked on some templates for this. So I know I read through a few examples, but we actually have a template for you, and I'm going to drop the link for it in the chat so you can grab yours. But we have 3 specific, um, literally templates that you can copy and paste into your email. Okay. And so I'll tell you what they're about. So one is the one win plus one need, right? So we're talking about what's happening. So instead of the we need to talk, which that sends people into panic in almost any relationship space, right? Any kind of interaction. One thing that's going well, one thing that we want to make sure we support and work on together. It's small, but it's going to build trust and accountability, right? Then we have the holiday buffer mindset messaging. Okay. And then a third, we have three specific templates for you there. I just dropped the link. I'll pin it a little later. Let me see if I can pin it now. Yeah, sure can. So it's pinned. You all make sure you go ahead and scoop up your message templates. Again, it's a lot happening right now. I'm using a lot of hands, a lot of shoulders, because literally it's a lot. Whether it is in regards to the holiday season and just some of the feelings and emotions that it brings, besides many outside factors, right? Like political things, happenings that are impacting a lot of, especially classroom spaces, in very specific ways, very, very specific ways. So there's a lot happening. So if this is one thing that we can do at Holistic Fluency to kind of help make things a little smoother, a little clearer, and lessen the likelihood of some of the drama that could come from some of your check-ins, right? Then please do, please and thank you, use the templates, right? Because I know that that's going to be extra important again as the clock is winding down on the semester. But again, the emotional tone that is the that is present for the sender and the emotional tone for the recipient may not be on the same page slash whatever the tone is that the person in space, the state that the person's in, that's how it's going to be sent, and then that's how to be received. So we're adding in some layers of language. Simple though, some things you just fill in a couple sentences that you need to, so that some of the positive emotions and the clarity and the humanity of it is laid in there. So we're cutting down on some of the shenanigans as much as possible. All right. Oh, you're very welcome. You're very welcome for the template. So when we're talking about also this communication and things from my heart to you all's educators, people that are connected to young people working on campuses, right? You don't have to be available 25/8. And I'm going to say it as a New Orleans girl. You don't have to be available 25/8. No, you don't. You do not have to be available 24/7. So clear boundaries are necessary, right? They're not abandonment. If think about when we are working with the young people we're supporting, who we support, we perceive ourselves as stewards, right? We're stewarding our gifts to support their gifts. So why would we still not see ourselves as stewards when we're talking about our personal space and time, right? Our stewardship doesn't start in one spot and stay there. It goes everywhere. It translates to every aspect. It translates to every aspect of life. So it's stewardship, making sure you're setting your boundaries clearly. Y'all, families respect that. Families respect consistency more than constant access. If you're responding at 11 o'clock and 10, and it's just, it's Saturday morning, then again, it's Sunday afternoon, and they respect consistency, right? Oh, okay, I know that Mrs. Jones will make sure she emails me back like Monday morning when she first gets in. Respect, okay? Your peace is not unprofessional. So, from my heart to yours, I wanted to make sure to say a few of those things while we're talking about the communication, because that is a common thing for educators to overextend themselves, but making sure the consistency and clarity in your boundaries, in your tone, and in the context. Y'all, that's the main thing. That's the main thing. Yeah, teaching is an act of the heart, it's an act of service, but it's not self sacrifice. And some of us got that confused somewhere along the way because it's not that. It's not that. So, what we're going to do again, y'all, if you want communication scripts, templates that are warm, they're very specific ways to strengthen the home to school connection. Make sure you follow that link now, right? The message templates, you all, they were designed to take the pressure off. Because again, this can be a very heavy point in the year, very heavy. Besides, again, some added factors for 2025. But it was designed to take the pressure off, maybe to finally have some language that sounds more like you, that's authentic to you, and to save your sanity not just before the break, but really anytime. You can use these anytime. And I bet you'll use 2 of these templates within a day of downloading them. Okay. But I also wanted to tell you to make sure, y'all, that y'all stay close. Y'all keep y'all's eyes peeled, your ears ready, because I'm building something really, really beautiful for December for educators as well. Okay. But let me know if you have any questions. Let me peek at the chat again. Any questions about any of these templates? Are y'all excited to use them? I hope. Right? Y'all checked in. So 1 and 2 on a scale of 5. Good. Good. That means pretty low lift. Pretty low lift. Good. Excellent. Well, thank you all as always. I appreciate you joining and look forward to seeing you soon. Bye bye. Y'all let me know about the templates. Let me know when you use them and how it goes.